ice cream's really good over there. Anything ice cream, milk products are all just like super really good. They're really polite. Whenever you are like going on transit or even in the grocery store, they are like really polite. Like they are not loud and boisterous people like in those settings at all. When you're on the train, it's super quiet. Or when you're in the grocery store, you don't hear like people crying or kids crying. You don't hear a lot of things going on. It's just that people tend to themselves. The land is it's just amazing. Like there's over 200,000 lakes that are in Finland, and then most of their land is also 60% is covered with forests. And so to get to places, most of the time we would be walking through forests, and then you would see like they have forest like strawberries and forest blueberries, and being able to just pick them as we're going along. And that was just an amazing thing. I'm like kind of shocking too, because like you don't find that very often unless you're like going camping. And so just to see it, like you'd go in an apartment and then all of a sudden you're walking out and you're in a forest. I was amazed at how like everybody took off their shoes to come into the house. It doesn't matter who you are. Like in their houses, like they don't have carpet, they just have rugs, and their houses are like a lot smaller and more like boxier. One of my friends has like 6 kids, and they had 3 bedrooms for 6 kids. That's very uncommon though, to have 6 kids in Finland. It's usually like 2, maybe 3. Like if you actually go on the street and you say, hey, how's it going? Like as like for Americans, we can just do that and then we can go off on our way. But for them, like they'll actually stop and tell you like how their day actually was, and they'll tell you the absolute truth. So like, my day was actually pretty crappy. And so like it's surprising, because they actually want, if you're gonna ask a question, you actually need to sit and listen to them. So I thought that was really interesting. They're also like one of the most honest people. Like you could go anywhere there and I don't feel any fear. Like I could walk there in the middle of the night and not feel scared. I've heard and I've seen some missionaries in my church, they lost their wallet while they were riding their bike, and they were able to go and find it from the police station. I mean, if you're just probably give out like 10 different wallets on the ground, they would all be returned. It's just something, they don't take something that's not theirs. Or if they see like I saw so many times where there's like gloves, missing gloves, but they'd always put it like high up so that someone could see it, so that they can come back to retrieve it. So they're kind of just interesting people, but they're just a really genuine people, and they're kind of like shy at first. But once you get to know them, they just like become your best friends, and they're really reliable. From a young age, they start learning more than one language, and they're just super smart. And then they have like continuous education. And all their education is free. So if you go there, and even those that are not even from Finland can go and get a university education for free. It's just getting there. That is the hard part. But they have like continual education, and they are just so smart, and most of them know at least 3 to 4, even 5 languages. Is like not an uncommon thing to see with that. They're also like, when they decide to do something, they're usually pretty determined to do that thing. They have this word called sisu, and that kind of, it just means like, it's kind of there's a lot of meaning with it, but like they have like a lot of strength and vigor, and they had to endure a lot like during the wars, and it took a lot of like sisu to like get through it, and they overcame the Russians because of how like courageous they were and how strong, and like I don't know, they're amazing people, and they're kind of a secret to the world really, because they're just like this little country that they're not Scandinavian, they're of their own people, because their language is just like so different from all the other Scandinavian countries, so they kind of get overlooked. But they're an amazing people. I know I still have friendships that have lasted all these years, which I know would probably not have happened if it were like from another country, because they stay your friend and they love on you once you get to know, although they are a little bit harder to get to know. Like, they're kind of private and quiet, but once you like get into their hearts, they're with you forever. They're very respectful in public and of other people in other people's spaces. Transportation, not very many people have cars. Like, they have like probably the best transportation, at least in Helsinki. You really don't need a car. Like, they have the streetcars, the trains, they even have boats to go to different like little islands that they have around there. It's just, and then there's buses. There's one bus I remember that would come by like every 5 or 10 minutes during rush hours. Like, you did not need a car at all. It just was, they had just such an amazing transportation system in that area. Probably up north, you probably would need a car up that way because there's not as many transportation as there is like in Helsinki. Tampere is another city I lived in, and it's like 2 hours north of Helsinki, and they have a pretty good bus system. And when I lived there, I didn't have a car. We just used the buses, and it was really still a pretty good system. Everything's a lot more expensive over there, probably twice as much as it is here, but I think you also get paid a lot more to live over there, so it I think it evens out. I feel like Finns have a better sense of style than here. Like, I mean, it's a European style, so like you'll see like men in European cuts suits, so they look very nice. A lot of the missionaries from my church, they would go and buy suits there because they just looked so much nicer than the ones here. A lot of the suits here like are kind of baggy, and there it's like very tapered and they just look very slick. I don't know, it's an amazing place for sure. It's a kind of a hidden gem. It's not like, oh, Santa Claus lives there too, so he's on the Arctic Circle line, so he's up there anytime. If you go there, you can go and visit, so kind of cool. There's so many like delicious foods there, and some like I haven't been able to find anywhere besides Finland, so if you want to buy them, you have to buy them really expensively. But my very favorite probably is just their bread. It's called risleipä, which correlates to being rye bread. It's definitely not the same thing that you'd find here. Like, it's a totally different texture. It's like very like, I don't know, it's firm, so it's not very soft, but it's just so good. And then I really love araka, which is kind of like a yogurt texture, but it's like creamier, and I don't know how to, like, almost like sour cream, but like just sweet. I don't know how to describe it. It's better than ice cream. They had like the salmon soup that's so good. Like, they live right by the ocean, so they get fresh salmon, so that was really good. There was like this like Christmas meal that they had, this fish, like it's like this raw fish stuff that I don't know what it was called, but that was probably the only thing they had that wasn't very good. But everything else has been like super good. A lot of it's healthy, but it's like really good. So I was looking up a word for bull. I spelled it as for your bowels. So it's like a total opposite. And they're like, when I was talking to this family, I was trying to say what, and they're like, they could not, they were laughing. They're like, what are you trying to say? And I was like, and then they knew English, so then they like, oh, you try. I was like, I was trying to say this. So anyways, that was probably the silliest mistake I made. I think of Finnish kind of like a triangle, where like the bottom part is learning the grammar, and once you have to learn the grammar and all the case endings that come with it, and then you can start like learning the language, where like English is like the exact opposite, where like the English is like an upside down triangle, where you can learn like to speak it really well, and the grammar is all over the place. But the thing with Finnish is it's very like, if you have a mathematical mind or even like a musical kind of mind, both of those really help, because I've had people that I've lived with who was like a musician, and she did super well with the language because you can hear the different case endings on a word. Their language pretty flat, but you have to listen to the parts at the end because they don't have words like of or the or from. It's a case ending that you add on to a word, and it could be a super long word because there's all these case endings at the end, so you have to listen to it very carefully. And mathematically, if you know mathematics really well, you can see how it all fits together. There's not a lot of exceptions like English, so it's very like logical. So once you get the grammar, it usually comes a lot like simpler, and with like learning the alphabet with it, every letter has one sound. It's not multiple sounds. And so a lot like Finns, they don't have like spelling tests because it's just you say it and you can sound it out as it is. So it's kind of interesting, and it took me a long time. I know a lot more like gospel words and getting around kind of words. My language, it's been over 10 years since I've been there, so it's gone downhill, but when I listen to it, I can recognize a lot of things, or when I'm reading some things, I try to keep up a little bit. So I have like this deep, deep love for the Finnish people. And actually, I feel like ever since I lived there, like a piece of my heart like is still there. And I just feel like that's like my other place of home. And I hope that I can come back. I've been back a few times, but I just always am wanting to plan for the next trip back to visit the beautiful country of Finland and the wonderful people. I just admire you guys so much, and I'm grateful that I had the chance to get to know your culture and you wonderful people that I've been able to meet. Rakastan, Teitä, tosi paljon. Yeah. Heippa.